we utilize strategies to minimize the liability.
Why did you start in accounting? Like,
I deal with this on the daily. How far can I take it with personal expenses? You have to be doing planning during the year.
you see this and it's like, oh shit, this is a red flag.
I really enjoy helping people, talking to them, getting to know them.
Sam, what is going on? It's good to see you.
Wall Street Poppy, nice to be here.
Nice to meet you too, bro. So I know we've been trying to do this conversation for a couple weeks, but now we finally made it happen. And when I have these conversations with people, I always try to put their best interests first. And I saw that you were primarily focused in accounting and tax. So from like your standpoint, why did you start in accounting? Like I have my reason why I started in accounting, but I just want to hear like your background as to why you got into that.
So I've always been a people person. And when I started the aspect of filing tax returns in college, I was in a volunteer organization. We would have clients come in, and that was my first. That was my first ever way of seeing what client service meant,
Yeah.
and it sparked this uh, passion in me. It sparked this really big interest in me of I really enjoy helping people, talking to them, getting to know them, what their family situation is like, their financial situation, just deeper aspects of a person's personal and financial health. And I just it honestly just fell into place after that. The client aspect is just I really enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah. So my story is completely different. Like my story, when I graduated high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Honestly, I was just like, should I become a police officer? Should I become an astronaut? It was all over the place. And a couple of my friends, like two of my best friends, were like, "Oh, we're gonna study accounting. Like, you can make a shit ton of money." And I was like, "Okay, well, I don't know what to do." My dad studied accounting too, and I was like, "All right, I guess this is it for me." And then through that route, I started kind of studying the accounting, and I got into stocks, and then that's when I kind of pivoted, and hence the whole Wall Street Poppy personal branding and working in finance. But I do feel like there's a lot of value with studying accounting because in there it is the language of business. So I'm definitely glad I took that and I have that core, those prereqs in my brain somewhere stored. Do you feel, and this is just like question that it's selfishly I want to ask for myself, do you feel like where do you think the education is for most people in terms of just like understanding the basics of taxes or like personal finance or budgeting? Because I feel like for individuals like us, a lot of these things may seem very maybe basic, very like, oh, like of course this is like a write-off you could do, or this is a type of investment you can make. But for most individuals, like where do you feel like their education is at?
So I deal with this on the daily. Anytime I help a client, it invariably comes back as, I wish I had more knowledge in this in general to see, to have started earlier, to know exactly what's going on. And I would have to say that a lot of people don't have that foundational knowledge in accounting, and I wish it's something that was mandatory to take in school with entrepreneur and business classes. It's uh, I really do think like just having some kind of idea of what a P&L is,
Mm-hmm.
what the tax code in general is trying to accomplish, um, is is something that everybody should know. But yeah, I would say a majority of our population doesn't have a basic understanding of tax and finance. And I think besides me doing my job, I try my best
Mm-hmm.
in providing that knowledge to them,
Okay.
because I think that makes the client relationship stronger.
Got it. And
Yeah.
so, besides the education and the tax info that you give them, what is like the main thing? Is it just information on how they could optimize their taxes? Like, what's your bread and butter?
So right now it's strategic planning. So with the entrepreneurs and business owners that I am dealing with right now, uh, I get there's something called quarterly estimates. So something that I always get like a wow, or I had never knew or anything about is, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur in America, you are required to be doing your bookkeeping and accounting basically, I would say, in real time. And this
Mhm.
allows you to see where you stand, budgetary constraints, what are you too leveraged in your business,
Right.
all the different metrics that you use in finance. But um, I would have to say that the planning aspect is the bread and butter of my practice. So, what are the strategies that we can use during the current year that we're in order to minimize that liability? I just want to drive the point home of it's you cannot come to me in April of the next year and think that everything is going to be solved.
Right.
And that's what I try to teach all my clients from day one. You have to be doing planning during the year in order to minimize that, because you can't say you bought something that was like $10,000 in April, but the year has already passed. Like it's planning just like anything else.
Got you. And just out of curiosity, for selfish reasons as well, for my own knowledge, do you see any patterns in a sense of, let's say you have some clients that you're helping out and you're like, oh shit, this is a red flag, like things are going to go south for them, or, vice versa? Is there anything that kind of stands out that's like similarity between those individuals that maybe might not make it in that business? Like, I'm just curious, honestly.
Absolutely. So I talk about this on my podcast all the time. It's it's the idea of personal expenses,
Person.
uh, and I think a lot of people in general want to take the deductions a little too far. Again, this is speaking about business owners and entrepreneurs. Employees don't get the special treatment in tax law that business owners and entrepreneurs do. So again, that is the point of tax law. It's incentivizing us Americans to grow and want to make something in society. So the biggest thing that I see is questions about how far can I take it with personal expenses. If something is not utilized for the betterment of the business, or an outlay is not utilized for the betterment of a business, it's not a write-off. And the tax court has a multitude of cases throughout all these years. They just always come back. Anything that has to do with your health and personal appearance, it's just not a write-off. And it's it also depends on how aggressive the client wants to be.
Got it. I mean, that logically makes sense. Like the individual that's working with you, all they really care about is trying to pay the least amount of taxes possible, right? Like that's effectively their goal, right?
Exactly.
So you're saying a lot of these individuals that maybe don't make it out in or like pursue that business, keep going, they have a misunderstanding of what they could write off to kind of pay less taxes over, X number of years. I guess that's my
That's my
understanding of
biggest
it.
question. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah.
And in terms of, I guess, like simple write-offs or things that maybe the majority don't know about, is there any that, you tell someone about and they're like, holy shit, I had no idea that I could actually write that off as an expense? Like, are there any that top of mind that you could think of?
I would say the biggest one is probably going to be rent. If you're a business owner in your house,
Ah,
you would think that that would be a little more intuitive, but it's not. Um, whether you're a sole proprietor, LLC, a corp shareholder, you have the option of taking that rent as an expense on your return for your business.
Holy shit. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about that because my ears are dialed in right now, and I just heard that. Like, is there any requirements that's needed? Right. So for let's say an individual content creator, they're making money off advertising products in their house. So what you're saying is that they could potentially write off the rent from their apartment.
Correct. So if you utilize your office, if you utilize your apartment as your business space, if you can prove that you're there a majority of the time doing work specifically for your business, then you utilize the square footage. So there's technically two ways.
Hmm.
You utilize the square footage of that room to the total of the entire apartment, and that percentage would be the amount of rent that you can. I know you were probably thinking I had to take the entire rent, right? No, no,
Right.
no,
Right.
no, 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 no. So
Okay.
you got to take the percentage of that rent based on how much of the space you use versus your overall.
So how creative can people get with this, right? If they're honestly, because like
Oh man,
I
you guys
feel there's
must be
always
trying to push the limits here.
no. I mean, I'm just curious for the individual, right? If they're a content creator and they make content in different sections of the apartment, I'm just trying to see like what is the most like legal way to go about this and actually account for more square footage, right? Like just
I
talking
see
out
what you're
loud.
saying.
Yeah.
So there's usually just a single space that content creators use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty intuitive when the IRS does these home office deductions. A lot of audits that I've been a part of, you're not going to be using the bathroom, the kitchen, and the bedroom for that specific client work for that business purpose. It again depends on uh, how crazy and wild do you want to get on deducting that. I'm here to give you what the law is and the strategies to reduce your overall liability. But you have the option as the client to say what is more proper in your eyes.
Got it. I mean, dude, that's good information to know. Like, I hope someone checks this off or looks into this at least to see how they could better their situation. I'm definitely going to look into that one for sure. In terms
Yeah, so
of
now that content
yeah,
creating is, becoming a big part of our world, I am getting that exact question a lot from people just like you who are running a podcast in their home,
mhm,
who are creating content. But something that, I was asked one time is like, what if I have like 150K G Wagon, or if I get
mm,
like believe it or not, a horse to put in my video. These things have limits. We have to also look at the economic situation going on.
mhm.
You might be, quote, only buying it for one video, but the IRS won't see that as you utilizing that to generate income to make the business better. In the pursuit of income is like what the verbiage is, an expense that is utilized in the pursuit of income, and is it actually necessary?
I see what you're saying. Like the expense has to be justified to make you more money. I can't just get a Cybertruck and say, "Hey, like it weighs over X number of pounds. I could write this off, even though I could work completely from home and never leave the apartment." Okay.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
I understand that piece. And so, Sam, how long have you been in business? Because I'm just curious from a technology standpoint in terms of like how the clients differentiate in terms of needs. And at least for myself, man, like I feel this technology is just growing and growing and growing. And it's almost way over my head at this point. And I'm just trying to understand, I guess, like the dynamic of the businesses because I feel like they get a little bit more technical as we progress. Like 10 years ago, the type of business you can make is completely different now. Like there's so many different things that we could all do to monetize. Like there's these, I don't know if you've seen these videos of these NPC characters on TikTok that people send them rewards or gifts based upon the movement that they make on the live stream. And this is like blowing my mind. People are making a shit ton of money just acting like robots on the screen. So I guess from like your standpoint, like the question for one, like how long have you been doing this, and have you seen any change in terms of like the business types? Like, are they getting much more nuanced?
So I feel old when I say this, Gabe. So
Yeah.
I've been an accountant for a decade now,
Nice.
specializing in the taxation of so many industries. I, I started my career in private equity, so I was a tax advisor for, I always like to say, the Shark Tank type investors. So
Gotcha.
that's what I specialized in: private equity, hedge, real estate investment trusts, those kind of things. And then I went into the entertainment business, doing some of the biggest house DJs in the world. And then I went to doing everyday families, and that's where I ended up because I like that familial and fun aspect of just getting to know someone on a deeper level. But as far as technology, yeah, I would have to say the tax industry sees more technological advancement as far as how we do our work first, than I would say in a lot of industries. Um, when it comes to the different businesses, what I love about accounting is no matter if you are a crypto fiend and making
Hmm.
$1 trillion, or
Right.
just like what you said, like a TikToker or someone streaming, like
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's going to come down to numbers, and that those numbers go into the books. So
Hmm.
it's actually pretty amazing. It doesn't matter how convoluted the business is. We're able to create the debits and credits to put that in our transactions. Yeah.
Got it. And then in terms of your overarching goal, like I know we talked about this in the beginning, but just again, kind of like reiterate, like for you being a tax professional, what is the mentality that you have? Is it just to maximize, I guess, like the tax return that they could get, like more cash in the individual's pocket, or are you also like teaching them about like investing and things of that sort? I'm just curious.
That's a really good question. So, I'm not allowed to give financial or investment advice in
Gotcha.
California, and most states. Each license has its specifics, but uh, I, I, what I like to do is tell clients to, uh, well, we utilize strategies to minimize the liability. The verbiage of getting the biggest tax refund possible, I think is not the way to be looking at things. It's
Hmm.
when you make money, you pay taxes. How can we minimize that liability to put you in a better place? And then that goes to answer your second part is that helps me allow them to budget, because budgeting or the tax liability is going to be one of the largest expenses that any business owner or entrepreneur has. So I just said this on my podcast a little bit ago. The rule that I like to use, but not hard and fast at all, it's just something to get the clients in that mindset, is 50/30/20 rule. When we do your bookkeeping, when we look at your expenses and your budgeting, take your gross income or your net, whatever calculation we like to use, take 50% of it for your needs, take 30% of it for your wants, and 20% of it for investing. And again, this puts everyone in the mindset of discipline, consistency, and what you should be doing. So it's a two-pronged effect, Not only are we trying to limit and minimize the liability, but we got to make sure you're budgeting well to be able to sustain a good life.
Got it. And you mentioned earlier, right? Like the biggest write off that most people are trying to get away with is the personal expenses, right? Like writing off their Cybertruck or G Wagon, etc. But the question I have is in terms of like an overall expense that maybe might be eating people away, like business owners or entrepreneurs, is there one that you could pinpoint that it's like you see this and it's like, oh shit, this is a red flag? Typically when I see this, it doesn't look good for this individual, things of that sort.
You mean like that they're overspending on, or a tax write-off?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like let's
Yeah.
say they go to Chipotle 5 times a day or something. Like, I don't know. Anything.
So it's actually the two that we talked about are the biggest culprits. It's car payments
Hmm.
and rent.
Okay.
And that again goes to budgeting. You have to know how much you're making and how much your net is. What are you bringing in and how much can you actually afford? Because if your profit and loss, if your income statement shows, 60%, and this is where we do calculations too of each line item of the expense, what is the ratio of that expense to your gross? How much are
Hmm.
you spending? It's usually the car payments and the rent. So
Got
people
it.
are living above their means.
Right. I
Yeah.
love the 50/30/20 principle. I talk about it on streams a lot on TikTok and Instagram because I feel like it gives people a framework.
Yeah.
I also tell them about lifestyle creep too because I talk about this scenario: an individual, let's say they're making 40,000, and let's say next year they all of a sudden are making 200,000. They're making 5 times as much money. I tell them to be careful with that principle as well because I don't want them to constantly like say, all right, let's keep balling out. Like now we could afford the penthouse, now we could afford the nice car, because it may be that that was just like one anomaly year, or like it was something that won't happen maybe for the next couple years, and it's kind of like setting ourselves up in that standpoint. How do you feel from that point, right? Because I'm sure you've seen individuals or business owners that they make X amount and then they double their income out of nowhere. And then it's like they got that nicer apartment, they got that nicer car. Even if it fit in that 50/30/20, are you still like, by the way, just make sure that, I don't know, you're not doing this every single year? Like what is your thought process? Like how do you view that?
I'm really happy you brought this up.
Yeah.
Lifestyle creep is a perfect way to explain it.
Mhm.
So I actually see this when it comes down to their investments. So let's
Huh.
say that someone's portfolio is at a $15,000 value and we're in a bullish market, and now their portfolio value is at 200K. So they're like, if I cash out today, I'm going to be a millionaire. I can do everything. It's exactly what you said. Yeah, if we apply the same principle to their income for their business, I think if we stick to that 50/30/20 framework, it it allows us to keep everything in check. Because if you're actually making that much and netting that much, and you're doing the 20%, auto investing, just putting it on autopilot, then you should still be in a good place because it's just about keeping that consistency. Um, but I see also what you mean, like, don't get maybe too ahead of yourself because what if we have a down market, or, what if just everything goes south? It's just be consistent with your 50/30/20, and you should be in a good spot.
That's an interesting realization you just gave me right now about the investments. Like, let's say someone had money in Bitcoin and then it went up to the moon, and they're like, "Oh my God, I have all this money now. Like, I'm good. I could just cash out on this and pay for whatever." That's a very valid point, right? Because I think in bull markets, we typically are over forecasting, or we think this is going to be the new norm. Hell yeah.
Exactly.
And it ties to what Warren Buffett says. He's like, be fearful when people are greedy, and be greedy when people are fearful. It's like this quote that I try to live by, but when it comes down to it, when it's that time where shit is hitting the fan, it's hard to kind of live by that principle of just like, all right, let's go into that burning building and keep buying whatever stocks, whatever the individual does, and having that inverse logic of buying when everything is going well. That's one thing that I always constantly try to remind myself, because we typically do the opposite. I typically get way less questions on Bitcoin or stocks when the market is doing absolute shit. But when the
Yep.
market is doing well, everyone is asking me, freaking everyone. Like, so it's a very important thing to have that realization to kind of stay even keel throughout the highs and the lows. So I think that's a really valid point.
And a lot of it is called, if people don't know, sometimes we call it like unrealized gains,
Mhm.
things that only happen on paper that affect your net worth. So this is, yeah, something definitely to be weary of. And Gabe's the man when it comes to anything that has to do with financial knowledge and investing. So he
I
sees it all
appreciate
the
that.
time.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And so, in terms of unrealized gains, given the whole dynamic of technology, I mean, I guess you can't say the specific person, obviously, but in terms of the craziest thing that you've ever seen, because there's been situations with crypto and NFTs that I met like a 20 to 21-year-old that he literally was 1 year out of high school and had like $500,000 in NFTs, and I'm like, holy shit, this is nuts! Like, this is freaking nuts. So, is there a scenario where you remember maybe it was like a really young kid that just had a ton of money in these different types of digital assets, and you're just like, what the hell's going on?
I haven't dealt with that. It's more so people who have uh, a business, or people who have been in business. Yeah, if there are any younger entrepreneurs in their 21 and up who are rich like that, let me know. I'll help you out. But uh, it's no, I have yet to come over that.
Got it. And
Yeah.
Sam, you said so you've been in business for 10 years. I guess like starting off, and even today, you could kind of chime in on that. How do you acquire new clients? Like, how do you go about it? Are you cold calling people? Are you getting references from friends, current clients? I guess like two-part question. How did you first get clients when 10 years ago, and how are you currently doing it now?
So the hardest part about growing a business is acquiring clientele.
Mhm.
So right now it's a mixture of cold calling and word of mouth. I really do my best to give clients an exceptional service uh, as fast as possible to show them the worth and the value. And I hope that has a ripple effect and shows what I'm capable of. But uh, I I'm I have to say that if something is not in our wheelhouse, let's say we're presented with something that we're not sure of,
Mhm.
uh, I will either do my best to research it to get the proper answer, or because of the network that I've built, for example, with individuals like you or attorneys and other financial advisors, uh, putting them in contact with those individuals to get that answer.
Okay.
So it's building a network to put the client in the best position possible.
Got it. And in terms of cold calling, how do you acquire a list? Like, because I always think of the original example of a Yellow Books pages, but
Oh
now
yeah,
in 2024, how does it go about? Like, are you going based upon like people that follow you on social media, or like how do you approach that?
yeah, you hit it on the head. So, because we live in the age of socials, it's IG.
Mhm.
It's really funny because a lot of a lot of individuals on their Instagram profile have a contact button and don't even know it. And what is linked to that is either their email or their phone number. So if you're like an entrepreneur profile or a business profile, utilizing those strategies.
Okay.
Or
Hence why you're
like me
in
and
social
you,
media. Yeah.
what was that?
No, hence why you're on social media, right? It's kind of to broaden the reach, trying to get clients and customers to be aware of you, right?
Right.
So got it, got it.
Or
Okay,
I was
cool.
gonna
Yeah,
say, the same way that me and you met too. There's the option of direct messaging, DMing.
100%.
For all y'all who don't know, me and Gabe met, I would say probably a year ago, all because we just came across each other on probably Explore. We had similar interests in finance, and I don't know, just hit him up, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. I don't know what you feel about this, but when I talk about social media to my friends and family, I think a lot of times they think it wouldn't work for them in a sense, or like it's some illusion that, you can't get clients or things of that sort through these social media platforms. But it's really just like the distribution. And I've said this before on my streams that in the early 2000s, late 90s, the attention was really in a couple different places, which was like primarily TV. And we had maybe MTV, Cartoon Network, Disney. There's very few places where we could spend our time. And as we fast forward today, the abundance of like where the attention's at with Netflix, whether it's Hulu, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, people have an infinite amount of options, and we could actually insert ourselves as the TV. So I've always found that interesting because Gary Vee talks about that a lot. And I think 2.5 years ago, that's when I really started trying to make content, trying to put myself out there a little bit more. And it's definitely a grind like anything else. That's why I want people to understand too. It's not like you do this and overnight you expect to have thousands or millions of followers, right? It's funny because before I started, I was really like, oh, if I do content every day, I'll have 100,000 followers in like 2 years for sure. But it's honestly hilarious in hindsight what you don't know. It's like overly optimistic when you don't know the reality of how hard it is. But I think I don't know for you if you feel like it, but I think it's totally worth it for any individual.
And don't you think, Gabe, like, a question for you is a lot of it is an illusion, right? I would have to say sometimes we can't be chasing things that are not real. Uh, I have seen multiple individuals, business owners who have in the hundreds of thousands or millions of followers and actually don't make a livable wage. A lot of it is just having that appearance, but not necessarily something to show for it. So, what do you say to
You
that?
you hit it on the nail. It's there's this concept that they talk about depth versus width, which is pretty much saying, and there's a whole article, a blog post. It's like tribe of 1,000. If you get fixated on just helping a small group of individuals versus like spreading yourself wide and thinking more and more follows the option, you can make a legitimate business out of whatever you're doing. So it's always that concept of like King Leonidas in the movie 300 had 300 Spartans and they freaking went ham. And people are fixated on trying to get thousands and thousands, but that's not really the issue for most. They just don't know how to actually make money, or they don't have a product or service that anyone wants. So I agree with you. Like focusing in on a small subset of people and just putting energy into that is far more important. And, I haven't had this crazy growth in terms of like following, but and I think it was kind of a good thing, a blessing in disguise, because I always focused and put more energy into actually reaching out to the people that were following me. So maybe when I first started, it was 100 people, but I would put time and DM them. I'll send them voice memos. I'll send them video calls and be like, hey, thank you for following. And that core group is what really matters, because over time you could figure out how you could provide value to people, and then you could scale. I think people think of scaling first before they have anything, and I think it works in reverse. You have to first, like, if you have 10 people following you, that's amazing. You have 10 people that are spending X number of minutes on their day looking at your content. That's how I view
Yeah.
it. And I think it's having that realization will give you longevity in it, because if you get fixated in numbers, maybe after a month you maybe have a newsletter or you make posts and no one's commenting or liking it, you're just like, oh shit, this isn't working for me, this is not for me. So it's always internal validation versus external validation, and you always have to kind of keep yourself aware that this is a process, this is a journey, like anything else. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying, focusing in on the depth versus all the other noise, all the other bullshit of like trying to become famous or trying to reach X number of followers to get validation from your family, like, oh my god, he has this many followers, right? Like a lot of these things is because it's some sort of insecurity. And once again, I deal with that shit all the time too. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I wish I had a little bit, maybe a more following, maybe it would give my parents more validation of what as to what I'm doing, right? Like we have this internal dialogue all the time, but I don't know, just focusing in on what's important and focusing on the day, I think is like my key thing that I try to tell myself. I don't think it's like I could tell myself that and every day I'm gonna be like skipping around singing the song Happy by Pharrell. But I really have to continue sort of, it's like kind of like working out your own mind.
Right.
like
You
fitness.
said it. You said it perfectly, bro.
Yeah.
And something that I want to know from you is your, or I want to tell the viewers, like, Gabe hit me up and said, what kind of content do you think would be beneficial for my audience? What kind of things would, and I think that's what makes a beautiful entrepreneur. I think he wants to give clients and give prospects and people he works with something of value. And
Mm.
that pushes himself to know more and get more knowledge. Let's say if people are asking him things that he's not familiar with. And that goes into my question of Gabe, why did you get into financial literacy? And I think that's freaking beautiful. And that's exactly what we were saying all the way at the beginning of this. Like, if people knew more about accounting, finance, tax, we would be living in a different world. But what was your reasoning for doing Wall Street Poppy?
So I had a realization, I guess, a couple years ago that the jobs that I was working, they were good, man. And I'm super grateful for all the jobs I've had because honestly, it's something that's a huge blessing, right? Like the ability to have studied and being able to get a good corporate job. There's a lot of blessings behind that. But I always felt like something was missing, as cliche as it sounds, like some movie shit. It's the honest truth. I always felt like there was something different I could have done, something that made me more fulfilled. And talking with friends and family over the course of the past couple of years, I realized a lot of individuals don't really know the basics of inflation, right? Like people can give you the buzzword, right? If you ask them why do things get expensive, they're like, oh, inflation. And then you ask, okay, but like, what's the reason behind that, and how can you better your situation? It's like, I don't know. And that's the thing that I wanted to help people and just like teaching them the logic of those concepts that could actually benefit their life in the long term. Because most people, they sit with cash, majority of their wealth in cash, and they think they're going to be fine just doing this. They look at stocks or investing as gambling. They have all these different assumptions that I don't know if they're completely correct on it. If we look at like the cost of living, the purchasing power of buying a home, it's almost an understanding that if individuals and specifically my friends and family were to do the same thing, they'd be much worse off. And then that's when the education kind of came about. I'm not Mother Teresa, right? I'm an individual that I want to try to make a business, but I feel like the education and the evolution of the internet has allowed me to leverage my knowledge to make a business out of it and also help out people. And I get a lot of joy from just generally giving someone something that they didn't know and they're like, holy shit, like I've been able to implement this and it's changed my life marginally. And that's the whole thing with my content. I've never tried to make content that gives people FOMO or sell people on some, BS lifestyle of like me driving a Lamborghini. I want people to get real value, and a lot of times real value, it's the honest truth, some people don't want to take the real value. Sometimes they're always looking for maybe that thing that's quick, like everyone's trying to get rich fast, get muscular in 2 days, like all these different things. Well, mine is focused on real value that you'll see it over the course of your life, whether it's 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Like that's the whole premise of it. I just want people to have a better life financially. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love it. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing what you do, brother.
No, 100%. It's I generally enjoy like the newsletters I do every week. I generally enjoy waking up on the Saturday and saying like, all right, let me cook. Let me see what I could give them this week. It for me, it's funny to most because it's just like, like with the newsletter, for example, I don't make any money with it, but for some reason, I still do it every week. So there's a balance of everything, right? I can't just do everything for free either because then I can't do this full time.
Right.
Um, but like I think it takes a type of specific individual to do something that they feel passionate about with, I guess, $0 up front. I think that's what stops most people, I guess, from doing that thing. They don't see those rewards initially, whether it's a month, half a year, 2 years, and they stop doing it. So
And
I
that
don't
goes
know
back to
how.
instant gratification. Like we
Yeah.
can't live in that kind of a society. Uh, well, we do live in that kind of society. Is what I mean is, I think as individuals, we need to learn that it takes time for good things to happen.
100%. And that's the, I think that's the issue that I've seen with most things, or in general. It's just people want that immediate kind of validation, whatever they determine as validation, just instantly within 2 seconds, 2 weeks. But the growth piece is the beautiful part of it. As cliche as it is, the journey is truly everything.
Yeah.
And the realization as well, it's like once you keep doing that thing, like for example, your content tailored to helping people understand better about taxes and in finance in general, the longer you do it, the longer you realize that there's a lot of people that were trying to do the same thing that you were doing, but they stopped already. And once, I don't know, at least once I tell myself that, it gives me more confidence to keep going. So like there's this quote, I think it was by Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom, that he was just saying that if you make more than, I believe it was 19 podcast episodes, you're already ahead of 99% of people that will ever make a podcast, because they won't go past episode 19 or something.
Oh
So I
wow.
was like, all right, little tidbits like this give me the confidence to just like, all right, let's just keep going, keep progressing, try to get 1% better. Like I was completely introverted when I started, and I'm still working on, I'm not like no Jay Shetty, obviously, on
I
in
couldn't
terms
see
of
that, bro. Are
talking.
you serious? No, you're totally outgoing to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know, I think that's the moral of the story too. We try to we tell ourselves narratives as well. Like when I was an introverted, bro, my first video was, at least for myself, I felt so cringy. I was like, oh, I don't know if I could post this. I'm scared what people are going to think. And I'm having all these things. Now doing it after 2 years, I could freaking post a live story of me doing the Dougie at this point, and I'll have no shame. So
Can we
the
get
thing
that?
is, yeah, it's coming soon, bro. But the idea that I was trying to get to is that most people will look at maybe what you're doing and be like, actually, like I can't do the content, Sam. Like I get what you're saying, that content can help my business, but I'm not that type of person. But in reality, it's like we're never born like that. I wasn't making videos, recording myself, providing value. And what you realize, like once you face that fear, all these doors start opening up. Like I just had this conversation with you because 2 years ago I decided, let me put myself out there. And then I've had other moments where I've had individuals, like literally from high school, kids, friends that I knew from high school, they're like, honestly, I didn't know that you were even into finance and stocks. Like, this is so dope. And I'm just like, that's crazy, because I've just been into this for the past 10 years since I've been out of high school.
Right.
So it opens doors, man, just like putting ourselves out there and just like doing something differently. I guess like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So
Yeah.
at least for myself, Sam, like in terms of content creation, that's why I hit you up as well, because I've been doing similar videos for a while, and I'm just like, I mean, I definitely see how, like there's an audience there, but it's like I feel like there's a bit of a plateau, so I have to zoom out and be like, okay, like what can I do differently? And I think the best thing about this content is working with individuals and having real conversations versus me talking to a camera.
Exactly.
So I feel like the evolution of where I'm headed is having more conversations with individuals like you, where we could bounce ideas, we could talk about things they're working on, ask questions, vice versa, and that creates much more organic. Is it
It's
like,
twofold,
yeah,
actually. I see it as, not only are me and you growing ourselves as individuals, but I personally think content that is more relatable like this makes more sense. Like what happens in the real world, talking to people like you who who have a job, who are able to see in real time what the decisions that we talk about do. And
mm-hmm.
just talking to a camera is also okay, but I don't think it provides the relatability or the value that we're looking for.
I agree. I think people resonate with the real, and that's why I think there's like, at least in my Instagram feed, I see a lot of these reels that it's individuals on the streets interviewing people, right? And for me, like I'm not like too sucked into the whole like scrolling on Instagram, even though I check Instagram more than I should, which is a big downfall. But I'm trying to get better. But all these videos where there's interactions with people on the street, those typically get more engagement because it's much more organic. It's like you're there at that situation versus like when I talk to the camera, like you mentioned, it's, I don't know, it's harder. It's harder. It's hard to get that connection to really engage with the individual. So
I've also
um,
seen a rise in content of negativity, and I'll
mhm.
explain. So having, I think you've seen the screen on screen where someone is critiquing someone else's
uh,
reel or video or explanation. And, that has become a lot more popular in just the past like 3 months or 4 months. It's like blowing up. So, it's amazing the direction that content's going in.
That's insane. I know what you're talking about. I actually saw this video, I think it was a couple months ago already, that this guy was critiquing Grant Cardone about whatever he was talking about. So I know exactly what you're saying. That's freaking nuts. Like, I don't know. I don't even have the, when I, like, when I wake up, I'm just not like thinking in that mode. All right, like, who can I critique today? I'm always just like, all right, how can I do something that could help someone out, some way, shape, or form? Um, but yeah, and so, Sam, in terms of content, how do you kind of go about, I guess, like making the content in the sense like, is it something every day that you work on, or do you pick a certain day? Like, I feel like everyone has different, I guess, pre-game rituals to that. So I want to see like how you go about it.
I'm getting better at this, bro. This is one of the more difficult aspects of entrepreneurship is getting yourself out there. So I'm working more on picking a day or picking a couple days during the week that I do my posts and schedule it. Because in my line of work, I can't be doing it that often.
Right.
Or it also comes down to how big are you as an entrepreneur and a business owner in order to delegate that task to another professional. And something I've learned that I want to, touch upon is as you grow, uh, realizing that you don't know everything and giving individuals who do that power, letting go, doing each person doing what they're best at and bringing it together to make something grow. So, yeah.
No, I like that. There's something interesting that I want to share with the audience. Hopefully, it helps them out. And then in terms of like the content creation, I've seen that it's gotten, I would say, marginally easier in terms of like editing content. So when I first started, I was putting captions manually on my videos. Like I would freaking pause, type words, play.
Uh,
Like I was just huge mission. Like probably spending 2 hours a day after work just typing captions. And now there's websites that add the captions immediately. So I know there's some. I'm not affiliated to any of these websites. I should be for giving this a shout. No, I'm kidding. But there's one that I use that's Submagic that I find to be very useful for the editing of captions. And there's another website that I'm getting into now that's called, I think it's called Opis Clip, and it allows me to put long form content like this into the platform, and then it will pretty much spit out like 30 short form videos. So I'm starting to try to figure out where I could utilize these different websites, because it could be to a point of, let's say you make a long form video with someone else, you could put that video into the software and it could give you maybe 20 to 25 solid short form videos that you could then post, and boom, you have like a month's worth of content. So
amazing.
I guess from like a content creator standpoint, just to provide my 2 cents to everyone here, I think I'm going that route where I'm planning to do more long form, put it into the software, give me reels, and then kind of schedule them accordingly. Like I wouldn't post 20 straight videos of the same interview in a month. Obviously, I'll split them up, maybe creating folders within my computer. But I think it allows for individuals like you and everyone else to make content, and it's not as like overwhelming, because I feel like one of the issues I had, bro, is just like, what do I cook up today? Like what can I think about? And it's overwhelming at times, because you're just like, sometimes it's like you have writer's block or creator's block
Oh,
as
yeah.
to like what to create. And sometimes we overcomplicate it. Sometimes maybe we think it needs to be perfect. Like I've seen some videos that I've thought of it in 2 seconds. I made it using my camera, posted it with no captions, anything, and it does better than some that I spent like 3 hours on. So I think social media is like a hit or miss with that. Like sometimes we just need to post it and keep going about our day. But yeah, man.
I think this also has to do with, it's forcing us to be out of the box, creative, pushing us to get out of our comfort zone. I think that's another way to look at it that I just thought of honestly. Same way as being a business owner or entrepreneur, uh, be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's all an evolution. Like the content creation, this isn't the last stop. We got a shit ton of more innovations. We got virtual reality. We're going to have to figure out how we insert ourselves in that. We have AI. We have all these different things. And what I try to tell people, it's just like if you don't constantly stay on top of this, you're going to be so behind and you're going to end up being the parent that doesn't know how to change the HDMI to HDMI 2, right? Like it really becomes that, but just on a different scale. And keeping up with this is huge because it's like, you know what, maybe this social media, maybe on Instagram this isn't the platform that I pop off on, but maybe the next evolution of it on VR, I'm already dialed in, I'm already getting after it, making these VR videos, and that's the one that hits. So I think it's just like patience is huge in all of this, man. But yeah.
I'm looking forward to, getting into the VR realm and possibly entering Gabe Wall Street Poppyland. Maybe you're going to have a whole virtual reality land of, helping people with their finances. So
100%. So, Sam, is there, I guess, any last things that you want to say? Any takeaways for individuals that are entrepreneurs or just trying to start their own business, just from your experience from this past decade? Like, what's one piece of advice? Anything, even for myself too, bro. Like, what is one thing that you could say to help out?
it all sums down to one word: plan.
Mm,
I think that's how you get ahead in life in general, but specifically with your financial well being. Plan. Make sure you know where you are, uh, and hire the right individuals so you have a good plan. Set yourself up for success. Don't wait. And again, push yourself to be uncomfortable to do great.
perfect, Sam. So, where can people find you? First of all, where can people find you on socials, and how can people, talk to you to see if it'd be potentially a good fit for your services?
Absolutely. So you can find me on IG at the Sam Graham 30. You can DM me. I have my business email, my business phone, everything on my socials there, and looking forward to helping you all out.
All right, Sam. Beautiful. So this is first of many conversations. We'll definitely have a couple more podcasts after this, 100%. But just want to say thank you, bro, for all your time today. It really means a lot to me. And I know for sure there's going to be one individual out there, maybe in Missouri or Kansas, that's going to listen to this and they're going to get some value from this. They're going to make a move. They're going to work differently and you're going to make an impact on their life, man. So I appreciate you, dude.
Thank you, bro. Let's get it.
All right, dude. Talk to you later, man.
Peace out.
Peace.